Astronauts to the moon.
What's going on, everyone? It's Jeranism, back again with another video for you. Although today's video is going to be just for fun. If you're the kind of person that enjoys watching toddlers run around and bounce into walls, then I think you'll totally enjoy this video. You'll get to see Auki Bartakamus in 3 different settings, but actually only one state, plastered. So here you can see buzzed Aldrin with his awesome new Bet Your Ass We're Liars t-shirt. He's of course standing in front of the 5,000-year-old megalith. We dated some of the ashes around the area, and so we know that the rocks had to be put there at the same time. It's called science, ladies and gentlemen. So it's truly one small step for man and 12 steps for Aldrin. Here Buzz is all decked out in all his bling. You can see he has a nice watch here, so you can tell the time. And another watch here. So, how drunk do you have to be to actually wear 2 watches? Let's just say as drunk as Buzz Aldrin. Here we have Booz Aldrin saluting the flag, I presume. Not sure what else he would be saluting. But, oh! Blue moon, of course. How could I be so foolish? So now I'll just cover a little bit of Buzz Moonshine Aldrin's background, so you know who he is. Basically, the most important point is that he is a liar, aka a Freemason. His Masonic career has gone through many different degrees and many different lodges. Most importantly, he did get the recipient of the Knight Templar Cross of Honor in 1969. It's real honorable to fake the entire world and tell him you went to the moon when you never went there. He's a member of the Arabia Shrine Temple of Houston, and Brother Aldrin, as the liars call each other, is presently a member of the Clear Lake Lodge number 1417 in Seabrook, Texas, and he's now a 33rd degree Mason. On July 20th, 1969, he was the first Freemason and second human being to set foot on the moon. While he was on the moon, he claimed the moon for the Masonic jurisdiction of the Grand Lodge in Texas, where they state they will continue holding meetings until the time comes that they can hold their future meetings on the moon. The Scottish Rite flag that went to the moon is back at the house of the temple in D.C., but I think we all know the truth, that they never landed on moon. So here we take a look at a couple of recent tweets from Mr. Buzz Aldrin. And the first one is, after a round-the-world flight, I thought I'd better brush up on my Mars knowledge. My new book, Welcome to Mars. I'm not sure if he realizes that he wrote that book. So, maybe somebody will tell him, or maybe he'll learn something new. Who knows? In this next tweet, you'll see that he's found something rather unique down in the lobby. I did an interview at the Washington Post to promote Welcome to Mars, and look who I ran into in the lobby. I'm not sure if he knows that's himself. So, it's a mirror, Buzz. That's actually you. Next image is Mr. Buzz Aldrin, and as you can see, he's not looking too good. Looks like lying is finally catching up to him. Now, I did hear that even in his old age, he's still using his old pickup lines, which seem to work, I guess. Basically, he just sees a girl he likes and tells her, I was second on the moon. Kneel before me. And I guess that's all it takes, so that's pretty impressive. And until recently, he always used to complain about Neil going first. He always had a little jealousy in him. But since Neil has died, well, he doesn't complain anymore. I guess he realized that going first isn't always better. So in this first scene, you'll clearly see that, number one, Guzzle Aldrin has absolutely no idea where he's at. Yeah, you'll see in a second that that's very clear. And then he proceeds to tell all the kids that after spending 2 years shooting down 2 airplanes in Korea, that he got started with a little place called NASA, which was followed by him telling the crowd that he got to go to that big round thing in the sky. So he's definitely zooted, to say the least, in this video. The funny thing is, the other NASA guy realizes he's a little deep, and he tries to say, "Let's hear it for Buzz," but there's no way Buzz is stopping, you know that. So he continues on in his drunken tirade. Oh, what a hero. Let's enjoy.
Like West Point, MIT, and then, after being a fighter pilot, shooting down 2 airplanes in Korea, just getting a little bit of combat, I got into this here space program. And I was given a chance to go to that round thing up in the sky. And now, what do you think luck has sent me to do? To figure out a plan so that you people will be the first to take a chance to be the first colony on Mars. Let's hear it for Buzz. It's so awesome to have Buzz Aldrin with us. That was a little bit of my life, but when I grew up, I didn't see a bunch of teamwork and stimulated people, but we got somewhere anyway. But the background that you have, with all these teams competing, everybody gung-ho and having a great time. And I believe that if you're not on that first colony, you're going to be working pretty hard. Do I have any job takers? We got a lot of jobs. How about all of you? You want a good job? Okay, everyone, let's hear it for Buzz Aldrin. Thank you for being here.
So, as you can tell, Fuzz Aldrin has had one too many. And he wants to know if there's any job takers. Any job takers out there? So, you didn't think he was done, did you? Oh, no, my friends. He's just getting started.
I am here to represent a support, a partnership from my Share Space Foundation. Years ago, it was going to be for a lottery. Well, that didn't work out. Somebody had a better idea. And then I thought I'd work on the education system.
Yeah.
But somebody very smart told me that we got lots of curricula. It's just that the school system is screwed up. And since I don't know really how to fix it, I do know that working with elementary schools, we can take the spirit that you had when you started out and make sure that you keep it.
So if you were listening carefully there, he was there representing his Space Chair Space Foundation. Then he says that the school system is screwed up. Next, I want you to listen for the other guy from NASA comes forward and basically tries to stop him and says, "Let's hear it one more time but Buzz isn't done." In fact, he goes on to try and spell something. See if you can see what he's spelling, because to me it sounds like S-S-T-U-N.
All right, guys, one more time. Let's hear it with the boss.
It's like we need to do something like this.
Alright, so help me out, guys. One more time. Listen carefully. It might be G-I-N, but it sounds more like S-S-T-U-N than a slur at the end. You tell me.
It's like we need to do something like this. It's like we need to do something like this. Ah, dang it. I really hoped you'd stick around for another 4 minutes.
Hey guys, how awesome is it to have Buzz here with us tonight? Thank you.
And here Buzz goes, just giving away too much information. You'll see here he says in a tweet, "Driving by Rockefeller Center brings back memories of when my father worked at Rockefeller Plaza for Standard Oil." Which is strange, because I'm pretty sure I've read his Wikipedia before, so I go look again, and it says here, Aldrin was born January 20th, 1930, in a hospital straddling the line between Glen Ridge and Montclair, New Jersey. His parents were Edwin Eugene Aldrin, a career military man, and Marion Gladys née Moon, and if you didn't know that, his mom's maiden name was Moon, but you might not know that because she committed suicide a year before Aldrin ever went to the moon. Aldrin was a Boy Scout and earned the rank of Tenderfoot Scout, which I guess is code for liar. Not really sure how that works, but if you don't know who Standard Oil is, you should look that up, because in 1911 they broke up. They were ruled as being a monopoly by the United States government, so they broke up and became separate companies, but they all funnel money straight up to John D. Rockefeller. I think you may have heard of some of these oil companies that are all actually, at one time, Standard Oil. You know, Mobil, Exxon, Echo, Arcon, BP, Amoco, Arco, Chevron, Unocal, Texaco, Conoco, Pennzoil, Shell, Jiffy Lube, Quaker State. Don't know if you've ever heard of any of those. They don't make a lot of money or make anybody rich, but they certainly made somebody rich. Quality companies who keep humanity held down, but again, his dad was a career military man. And we all know that Buzz tells nothing but the truth, right? Here he tweeted, "The treachery of 9/11 introduced modern jihadism, but its contrast is American resiliency, unity, and freedom." So the only problem with this is that you do tend to put a bad flavor in people's mouths, and then in an article that reveals a Muslim cleric believed that the earth did not spin. This was the opening to that article, which showed some brainwashing and some ideas that may come from people like Buzz Aldrin. Don't hold your breath. The intelligence is blinding. This is the kind of mindset we are dealing with, complete and total idiocy. We need to block all asylum applications, ban immigration from Muslim countries, and block all future trade associations and their access to trade and investment into our countries. Then we won't have to spend billions of dollars every year chasing these retards when they try to kill us, or looking for a needle in a haystack by spending massive budgets, searching for terrorists, or helping their loony countries wage more wars. Let them stay home in their deserts, drink their camel pee to cure all their ailments, and cut each other's hands and feet off. They approve and endorse it themselves. No need to invite it onto our doorstep. We are a loving country, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely loving. Now, you don't think that that article writer got that from propaganda, do you? I'm sure he's actually been over there and seen them drink camel piss and cut each other's hands and feet. It couldn't be just the media or the news, or I'm sure it's all real. He's been there. Here we just have a little example of the kind of propaganda that goes around. You see a tweet from Professor Brian Cox. It says, "If I ever have the misfortune to meet the fish head who commissioned this shit on Channel 5 about the moon landings, I will punch them." Let me tell you one thing. There is nobody, and I mean not even Buzz Aldrin, who scares me less than Crime Box. So I'm not really sure which class he learned that in. I'm sure it was physics or biology, maybe physical education, or what's the one with the short bus? Special education. That's what I'm guessing he learned that at. And if you want to know why the globe is obviously the predominantly believed theory in the world, it's because they force you to believe it. They know you don't want to be stupid, so when you look up something like moon hoax, these are the kind of results that you'll get straight out of Google. Brian Cox and Buzz Aldrin slam Twitter Apollo 11 hoax theories. Buzz Aldrin and Brian Cox slap down conspiracy crackpots. Famed physicist shuts down moon landing conspiracy theorists. Brian Cox has a hilarious message for all the moon landing hoax theorists. Buzz Aldrin shoots down moon landing conspiracy theorists. That's the kind of crap you get when anybody with half a brain knows we didn't land on moon. You knobhead. Here we have Buzz riding on a rocket. Shh, nobody tell him. Remember, he believes he went to the moon. And in this image here, we've got old President Nixon. He was a truthful man himself, you know. He's laughing, the other guys are laughing, and you'll see at the top, most people didn't even notice that the little tank that they were in was called Drunk Plus 2. I'm not going to tell you who was drunk and who was plus 2. You can figure that out on your own. You should catch Buzz's new book, though. It's going to be on shelves soon. It's called Buzz Aldrin, Reaching for the Vodka. Should be an interesting read. He also has another new book out, actually. It's called Buzz Aldrin, Mission to AA. My vision and my memory are gone. And he's also got a new film coming out. I suggest you check it out. It's called The Hangover. And if you look at him there on the left, he clearly has no idea where he's at, nor where he was at last night, or probably the night before. Now, you might be wondering, as I was, what does a drunk rich man do at home when he's got nothing else to do? Luckily, I've got the footage.
I know where you're going. I've been in space 2 times. I've walked on the moon. Before we can let you go into space, you've got to pass a battery of tests. Are you ready? Anti-gravity test. Fitness test. Centrifuge test. Crash landing test. Rocket test. Congratulations, you're cleared for launch. Just remember one thing. I'm the real Buzz.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, this next interview is not short, but it is worth every single minute. It's Buzz, drunk off his keister, answering questions or really not answering questions. So, folks, here he is, everyone's favorite smashed moonfaker, over Buzz Aldrin. Circuit breaker.
So this is going to take a format of a Q&A, so I'm going to ask several questions before opening it up to the audience. Firstly, thank you so much for coming. It's a true honor to have you here.
Now, watch his
My
left leg
first
here.
question is,
Hilarious.
when you accepted your mission to the moon, how sure were you that you'd make it back to Earth?
98%, 95%. That's what they told us. But, see, there's a difference between landing, 60%, But there were many ways of being able to leave without landing and getting back safely. So that was a believable 95%. That's good odds.
Did that change throughout the whole mission itself? Did you ever have any doubts at all? And if you did so, how did you combat that?
Well, on the way back, I think it went up to about 96, 97%. When we touched down, that was the most moving moment, I think, for me anyway, because so much depended upon being able to land. Because if you don't land, you're not going to get out and walk around. And somebody else is going to have to do it again. Now, the president didn't say anything about it. He did say man, one man, but nothing about walking around. We added those things as expected. Once you land, it's easy, really, unless you lose your balance, to come down that ladder and go and walk around. And it was absolutely correct that the captain, the commander, the Navy guy,
His name is Neil Armstrong.
symbolically make the first descent and walk on the moon. But I think with the training workload that we had discovered in many of the previous missions where somebody went outside the spacecraft, it was always done by the junior person. But that really wouldn't have or shouldn't have applied in this particular case. But I think what should have happened, perhaps, was that once that ceremonial was over with and we were both outside, the activity should have been trained for and more supervised by the junior person. And that's would have relieved that training workload.
I was wondering if you could
All I did was follow. But that, if you got a leader, you have to follow him.
I was wondering if you could talk a little about the training process that you went through before the mission itself. I know with previous missions.
Well, we had about 6 months from the time we were announced as a crew. And it was pretty intensive training, especially in the lunar module.
If you think something's wrong with your sound, that's just the
Nobody's
clickety-clack
done
bracelets.
this before. We've gone up, we come down on a parachute, and been in the ocean upside down. We didn't know that spacecraft was going to float upside down, but it surprised the North American. That was the name of the company then. And we came back and we went upside down. Now I thought for sure it was because the wind blew us over, but then you look at the video and those 3 parachutes just, I don't know what it was. Maybe we bounced.
And just because he stops talking does not mean he's done.
Oh, I do know what. Yeah. Well, my job was to reach over on the right, and I had my fingers on the circuit breakers.
This is definitely the theme of this interview. Circuit breakers.
Parachute jettison circuit breakers. You don't want those pushed in because somebody might accidentally throw the switch at the wrong time and you wouldn't have any parachutes. That's why you have circuit breakers. You may ask a question later about circuit breakers that were broken.
Well, actually, my next question is, if the moon mission had been the current proposed Mars mission, i.e. a one-way journey, would you have still gone?
To the moon?
Yeah.
No. Listen, You know, most astronauts had to be Eagle Scouts, at least I thought. But I was a tenderfoot. That's the lowest rank you can get. It's like a plebe at West Point.
Now, how do you envisage the makeup of future space exploration? Do you think it will be individual nations, international efforts, or private companies that are pushing the boundaries and carrying out new achievements?
I think I got the gist of that.
I can repeat it if you'd like.
No, I do have my hearing aids in. But I think I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the future.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, I think the position that the United States should play in the international community should be one that recognizes where we came from and what our talents for contribution as a nation really could be and maybe should best be utilized in the future that we can see. And by that I mean we spent a lot of time preparing for the Apollo missions. And I'm sure the Russians did too, to try and carry out this challenge that we gave them. So I think in a way we're excused from that competition for prestige. And of all the benefits that were derived from the Apollo program, it gained prestige for our nation in the world. I don't think that was on President Kennedy's mind. He knew that the Soviets had moved ahead of us. Rockets were first really used in World War II, much to the dismay of a lot of English people in southeast England, the B-2s. We didn't do that. We got bombers and A-bombs, but not rockets. And Sputnik is what the Russians did. We didn't quite get in that position either, and it just looked like that maybe in this new arena of technology with Sputnik that we were going to be behind, and that's what the president, I think, had in mind when he wanted to challenge America to put a man on the moon and bring it back safely. We got more than we could have hoped for. 6 out of 7 successful landings. The only real setback was before we started with the fire in the spacecraft on the launch pad that killed 3 of our astronauts.
Buzz? Buzz?
At the moon, we can do many things, but it maybe you ought to even start in low Earth orbit. We have a space station. Unfortunately, some of our congressional people decided that maybe the human rights abuses were such that we should disqualify the Chinese from being a part of that activity. Very unwise decision, in my mind. So we have to, I think, come to grips and reverse that sort of decision and come up with a cooperative way of working with the Chinese in low Earth orbit and at the moon. And we can do that by on either side of the moon is an optimum point to put a space station that can then control robotically activities on the surface. and leave the landings of human beings up to the other nations by not competing but cooperating and assisting. And one of the major areas of assisting is maybe helping to design what the base would be like on the near side and the far side, and then letting a foreign country build these, maybe several countries together, and land them, and then the very complicated business of picking one up from the lander, putting it where you want it, and then the next one, and level them, and then their different elevations. That gets rather complex, but we need to know how to do that, maybe with very similar habitats, I call them exploration modules, so we can then have those placed on the moon or on Mars, maybe 5 years before we send people there, so that from the Earth we can control very, I wouldn't call it sloppy, but it's very tedious and drawn out because of the great time distance of transmission of instructions from the Earth. Could be as short as 4 minutes one way, but it could be 20 minutes if the Mars and the Earth are on opposite sides. So it really takes a long time to accomplish things. But I think we can, if we start early enough with space launches, we can bring them rather close together. And then when the crew gets to the moon of Mars, their task will be to make the final connections. And they're highly motivated to do that, because if they're successful, then they'll land just before 3 more landers come in. Now, this is sort of the power of the system that I'm promoting. It's a continuous orbit that at certain times swings by the Earth and swings by Mars 5-6 months later. And all the life support is on board this cycler. Radiation protection and supplies that have been resupplied. So the crew really just needs to be in a lander. And you can have 2 or 3. That's my present plan. And that gives you redundancy to the thrust applied for trans-Mars injection.
I think we might.
When we went to the moon, we were on free return trajectory, and something went wrong. We were, at worst, in a 10-day orbit going to Mars. There is no free return trajectory at the times that we want to go. And if you don't get all of that outbound velocity change, even 85%, if you don't get that, you're not going to reach Mars, you're not coming back to the Earth, you are in a sun orbit. And that's bad news if you don't have redundancy. And I do in my plan. The other corporations and NASA right now don't.
So I emailed Buzz because I wanted to get a copy of this plan he talks about all night. And so he was nice enough to send it over. We'll take a look at that, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Basically, really not a lot of errors that can go wrong. We just fly the rocket from NASA in a trajectory 4 or 5 months to Mars.
Because I know that sounds such an interesting answer. We can go to the gentleman in the front row just there. There should be a microphone coming round. It will amplify your voice. Please may I ask questions to be short and to the point.
How did your perception of the world change as you landed on the moon and looked back on Earth?
Could you just repeat that question?
How did your perception of the world change as you landed on the moon and looked back down on Earth?
How did your perception change?
I had one wife at the time. I've had 3 now, and I've given up. But there's a cute lady over here. And I've known her for 20 years. When we met again, she said she wanted to fly around the world. Can you imagine that? I said, how long is it going to take you? I don't know, what was it, 80 days, or with a stop in between? God, I said, you know, we went around the world in 90 minutes. Well, just to make sure, I'm going to go with her on the first leg. And instead of a propeller, I helped her get a jet. But then I'll join the last half of it, which is the interesting part coming home. Several stops: India, China, Russia, Alaska.
Buzz's girlfriend has joined with us this evening.
This is Judy Rice, former teacher.
Right, we'll head to the next question.
Airplane driver.
Had to get airplane driver in.
And handy woman around the house.
We will head
What's that?
just there.
What is the silliest thing you did on the moon?
Silly. Depends on whether something I said, maybe, or something I
Whatever you
did. Well, you know, getting down that ladder is not that hard to do. And before it was my turn, I got to look out the window and watch Neil kicking up some dust and picking up a grab sample so that he put it in the pocket in the side of his suit. So I could see that moving around was going to be pretty easy. Besides, I'd done spacewalks floating around with nothing. At least you had the surface of the moon, a little bit of gravity that really helped. So I got down the bottom of the ladder, and the checklist had said, now hold on to the edge of the landing gear and check your balance to make sure it's okay. Well, I didn't need to do that, but at least there was 30 seconds or a minute. And we had prepared ourselves very carefully for being outside a couple of hours. And you know, nature sometimes calls when you're not expecting it. Well, we didn't want to get caught short. So we made sure that everything on the inside of the spacesuit that was designed to take care of number one. We were in real trouble if number two came along. So I got down the bottom of the ladder, and nothing better to do than to test out the system. And Neil will always be known for having put the first foot on the moon.
Matt?
You talked about a vision for Mars being colonized by 2020, and I was wondering if you could talk a bit about that vision a bit more.
Well, I don't know how long you can stay here, but I can keep going for a couple of hours on that subject. And I certainly wouldn't be brash enough to put that early a date. I hope to be around by, did you say 2020 or no?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I hope to be around 2019, because that's the 50th anniversary of first landing. And I hope that President notices that, we'll remind him, of course, and he chooses that occasion to make a commitment for the future. I can almost write the words right now. I believe that this nation, wait, it might be a woman. You want to say this? Okay. That this nation should commit itself within 2 decades to landing a person on the moon. Internationally, with all the nations, and to establish permanence on Mars. Not a colony, not a settlement, permanence. And that would be by 2040. And I think I've given an awful lot of thought to how it can be done in productive ways with the help of the other nations, especially at the moon, where we can be leaders there by bringing the nations together and then helping in the critical things of bringing together the base that they'll be working from. And then we do the same sort of thing on Mars. And we establish these continuous orbits. We need 2 of them, 2 cyclers. But the system is so good that the only thing I have to join up with these 5-6 month flybys is landers. And if I get redundancy, I get 3 landers there. And if they are like when we first started thinking about that, that's 6 people in each lander, 18 people. The first opportunity. Now, they're not going to be all Americans. This is the U.S. contribution to the future to establish the human transport. And obviously, we'll be taking people from other countries. And we hope that we'll be able to hitch a ride or 2 on some of the earlier missions, the Chinese and others. Sounds like a good plan to me.
Do you think it would be incredibly useful to set a time limit on the mission to Mars? Because I know you were given sort of a time limit to get to the moon.
Well, every president for about the last 5 presidents have agreed sort of that the ultimate objective was Mars. But we never got specific about it. You need a destination, clear destination, and what you're going to do there. You need a time of sorts. And you need a plan. And with those, you can do the best you can to carry out that plan, and we just haven't gotten to that point yet, but I sure hope we will, and I'll be around to see its commitment, maybe not its execution. That's what my son is for down there.
We'll head to the next question, maybe one from the back, the lady at the back. Ollie, we'll just bring you the microphone. If you could speak up loudly and clearly, that would be wonderful.
And you'll interpret for me.
I'll interpret. You're speaking American, I'm speaking.
I actually just wanted to ask about the period of quarantine you and the crew underwent on returning to Earth. What was it like to be back on Earth but unable to sort of enter into the real world and see all the people?
We've got a baseball player, a very famous baseball player. Now, when I moved out of my hometown, he moved in. His name was Yogi Berra. No? He's known for famous quotes, statements. It ain't over till it's over. And that's the way the trip was. And leaving the moon, coming back, you know, we still had some things to do. You don't want to skip out, not have enough oxygen to come back. You don't want to come in too steep. And you'd like the guidance to work. And hopefully nobody's pushed in the circuit breakers and tripped the switches, so you have a parachute when you come back. You don't care whether it goes upside down, that's all right. Because the circuit breakers didn't get pushed in time for Mike Collins to throw the switch. By the time he did, we were on our way over. And it was over. Except for a few things. Now, the moon was going to have a lot of dust on it, and we had it all over our spacesuits. And we got back in from the lander into the command module, and there was a lot of dust around. We tried to vacuum it up. But that was possibly poisonous? That's not the right word, but anyway, it was harmful. They didn't care about us, they cared about everybody else. So we were put in quarantine, not to save us, but to keep the germs from you. So we splashed down, and the divers came along and put a float around, and then they opened up the hatch and threw in some suits, and we put these suits on with a little visor on it, and we could filter so that we could breathe. And we got out into the lifeboat. Now the suit, of course, that we put on had been inside, and it might have had some dust on it. So they had some, who knows, iodine or something like that, and they scrubbed us down. Now, that probably had some dust on it. That's okay. They tied a rock around it, tied a rope, and tossed it over.
Dumping shit.
So, the germs, if there were any, were now in the bottom of the ocean. That's a good place for them. So we were in quarantine, but actually it gave us a little bit of cushion getting back and doing some reporting about what the flight was like. And it sort of kept us isolated, and that was good. This is supposed to be germ-free place that we were living in. But Mike Collins and I occasionally jogged around the hallways inside this. I did jog a little bit way back then.
We'll head to the next question.
And it was kind of funny to see a crack in the pavement and some ants. They probably got all the germs they needed and then went back outside again.
We'll go to the lady in the second row, just there. with blonde
Jogging
hair.
through the hallways and seeing ants
We'll
in
go to the
quarantine.
gentleman waving his hand afterwards.
What was the scariest moment of the journey?
Scariest. It didn't happen. It could have been scary. Circuit breaker.
That is the funniest thing I've ever seen. You have to
Oh.
watch this a few more times.
I'm glad somebody helps me. Scariest. It didn't happen. It could have been scary. Circuit breaker. Oh, I'm glad somebody helps me. We came back inside after kicking up dust and picking up some rocks. And of course we had to send them up the ladder, because that'd be hazardous carrying a big rock box up the ladder. So we thought of that ahead of time. And we had a clothesline on a pulley, so we could send that down. I sent the camera down to Neil so he could take my picture getting on down there. But then it was there so we could hook the rock box on there. That's why I got in first, see, so he could be the guy putting the rock box, and I would pull it up inside the cabin. So we tracked a lot of dust inside. But then we were supposed to tidy up, and tidy up means get rid of stuff you don't need so you won't be as heavy to lift off. Well, the backpacks were pretty heavy. So we got in, we had to pressurize the cabin, disconnect from the backpack, hook up to the spacecraft system, and then depressurize again and throw the backpacks over. Now, there was a seismometer experiment out there, and the people back in Houston could hear those backpacks hitting the ground. They actually said they thought they could hear us on the seismometer bouncing around on the moon. I don't think so. We could see the tracks 40 years later with film. Okay, so we get back in, and we pressurized the cabin twice, and that's taking high pressure and low pressure. You guys in thermodynamics or something like that, it gets cold when you do that. Well, it got quite cold twice, so we tried to sleep, and it was very cold. Turned the heat up, put the suits on with the visors. Well, we had the suits on, put the visors over, and I said, I take dibs on the floor. You know what dibs means. I volunteered to sleep on the floor. It was nice and flat there, and Neil sat down on the top of the engine cover, and Neil leaned back, and he was satisfied with that. So, of course, I put my head on the right side, which is my side. The commander's side is the left pilot and commander, or co-pilot. So I looked down, and with all this sort of dust, there was something that didn't look like it belonged there.
Don't say it.
It was
not a circuit breaker.
Circuit breaker. Broken circuit breaker, the end of it. You know what that means, I can see.
Yeah, circuit breaker.
Now, you have circuit breakers, so you pull them out if you don't want to have that system accidentally go, like jettison the parachutes at the wrong time. So now I got a broken one down here. I wonder what it is. So I got up, turned the light on, looked along a rows of circuit breakers, and there was one that looked like, for sure, it had a circuit breaker sticking out, but not anymore. It was broken off. Wonder what it said in letters. Engine arm. That's the one, when you get ready to land, you got to push it in so the engine will work. And after you land, you pull it out, because you don't want that or the ascent engine to the ascent engine. Yeah, you got to have the circuit breaker in for that to work. That's the one that gets us back in orbit and gets us home. We missed a great line. Houston, we got a problem. But that's okay. Lovell used that line on Apollo 13. Besides, it wasn't our problem, it was their problem to figure out what we're going to do to get power in case pushing in that circuit breaker.
We'll head to the gentleman waiting cell.
So anyway, I used a pen to push it in because I didn't want my little finger or a metal pen. It was felt tip. Pushed it in 2 hours early and
Hi.
piece of cake. No problem.
As far as the space policy of Barack Obama's administration is concerned, a couple of years back, it was proposed again in front of him that to land on the moon again, the human beings. What are your comments over it? And he rejected the idea. So don't you think it would be beneficial for the mankind to have that mission again with more advanced technology?
What is going on here? What is Buzz thinking about? Huh? Oh, me?
Sorry, could you just repeat that?
As far as the space policy of Barack Obama's administration is concerned, the idea was placed in front of President for sending the mission again to the moon, the human beings to be sent again, and the President rejected the idea. Do you think that this idea would be beneficial for the mankind to observe the moon with more advanced technology?
Well, I heard him give a speech. And the reason I heard him is because I stowed away on Air Force One on the flight down to Florida. So we walked down the ladder together and waved at the crowd. And we got our picture taken. That was his reason for my being on the plane, I guess. So he said, well, in the future, we're going to orbit Mars. And maybe in his lifetime, we might land. The moon? Been there, done that. That's not something that you learned from me. I sure didn't say that. And nor would I would. And nor would I would. And nor would I would. Would I say that in front of a crowd? A small group, maybe I'm joking. I don't think he really meant that. We did say specifically that we could send a crew to an asteroid in 2025. I understood that because that was in a plan that I had submitted a year earlier to a study group. You could fly by a comet, visit an asteroid, another asteroid, and do the comet thing again. It wasn't going to the moon and it wasn't going to Mars, so it was sort of in between. And it didn't really inspire the nation to have a flexible path instead of a destination. If we had said, we're going to go back to the moon, we'd have probably been second doing that. And while we're spending a lot of resources doing that, the Russians would maybe go to Mars. So that isn't my concept of leadership. And I don't think he meant that either, but we just haven't zeroed in on a really correct plan yet. And a lot of it is because the budget is not there. It's being spent on some things that...
Rewind that, watch it again, and comment if you don't laugh.
Maybe we don't need completely. A senator who's the head of the authorizing group subcommittee just the other day said we're spending a lot of money on looking back on the Earth. Sure, we need to do that, but not increase that and decrease the amount that's going to exploration, because exploration is what inspires people and gives us more technicians. Exploration is what inspires people and gives us more technicians. And I think we just have to reverse the order. We have to increase the enthusiasm of the public support for what we're doing and raise the budget and do the things that really are needed, and maybe cut back on some of the things that have been decided to do, but maybe not too wise. But if you don't have much money, you have to spend it on something. That's a sorry state of affairs, but you don't give the money back. So again, I think we just need public support behind an interesting, inspiring plan that's doable, and we understand how to raise the budget to do that. And to do that, we need the public to get behind and be enthusiastic, be inspired by a plan that we can carry out and that will excite people.
I'm sure everyone here is really enthusiastic and supportive. Let's head to the gentleman just at the back.
How about a question that's either yes or no?
Hi, Buzz. What's your advice on handling criticisms? You're the second guy, Buzz, or probably the controversy. Nobody really went on moon, so lots of criticisms. How do you handle criticism as a leader?
Well, if people don't think the way I do, they're wrong. No, the president said, been there, done that. Yeah, that may be right in some ways, but there's a lot to be learned about the moon and robots. There's a lot to be learned about the moon and robots and robots. In the last 45, 50 years, robots have gotten so much better in doing things. Still have that distance, that transmission time. Humans, we haven't improved much at all. So there's so much more that can be done judiciously, robotically on the surface of the moon. Prestige? Nah. But China wants prestige. Russia does. Europe. Everybody would like their people to understand that they're keeping up with the rest of the world.
Following on from the question on criticism, now you're in the public spotlight. My question is, what is the least popular opinion that you hold?
I don't know. I had a good thought the other day, and it's in my plan now. It's a flyby of Venus. Now, men are from Mars and women are from Venus. So we need a crew of 2 ladies to go to Venus. I haven't had any volunteers yet, but it's a great mission. No, it would stimulate people. Just like flying by a comet. You know why that's stimulating? Because people got the binoculars, they can see the tail. And we know that. So the upper stage of the rocket, after it's got you, we're going to crash it into the comet as we go by. And everybody with the binoculars will see it go boop. Now that's public relations. That's what you got to do.
Go to gentleman in the second row, or is it?
At least you can have 2 microphones so this guy doesn't have to walk back and forth.
What do you think the biggest impact of the Apollo missions was?
Six out of 7 successes. I think that was more than we expected. Later, 1975, we thought it was a good idea to do a Apollo-Soyuz joint mission with the Russians. 1975, the Cold War was still pretty mutual assured destruction. And this coming July, we got a 40th anniversary of that. So, Alexei Leonov, come on over. We'll get you in the White House. Maybe we might begin to think about easing our relations with China. That would be a good reminder, I think. Now, something did happen, though, a little bit later after 75 and 1975 and 80. It was called Strategic Defense Initiative. Now, you didn't get to hear that name because the newspapers, the media, trivialized it by calling it Star Wars. But it was a defense against missiles, intercontinental missiles. And we felt we could initiate that. Gorbachev didn't think they could because they didn't have the industrial capacity, as evidenced by being ahead with Sputnik and other things, and we clearly surpassed them with the industrial might to be able to do that. And if we took away the threat of missiles, the game was over. And that's what happened, I believe. So you ask, what is the most important thing that came out of it? Was maybe not agreed by everyone, but I certainly believe that it changed the tide of the Cold War. And Putin didn't quite understand all of that. So I think he's trying to recover some way.
Would you want to be
When we came back and had dinner with President Nixon, he sort of wanted to know what we would want to do next. And he knew that Mike Collins had some ideas about maybe leaving and working with the State Department in international relations as the result of our international success. And Neil wanted to work in aeronautics, and I wanted to return back to the Air Force that I came from. All of us felt we were so fortunate to have been on that flight that made the first landing that we really didn't want to get in line again, because we would be taking an opportunity away from other people. When it was first announced that we were on a crew in January of 1969, you never know for sure what you're going to, even if the rotation appears to be a shoo-in. But when it was announced, I went back home, because we'd been waiting in January for this to be confirmed. And I told my wife that actually I'd just as soon be on a later flight than the first one, because that's going to get all the glory and sensation and giving speeches and going around the world. It was not the sort of thing that I really relished, and a later flight might get to do some more interesting. But I obviously didn't have that freedom. That would have been unfair to the whole system for us to disturb the rotation. It turns out that I had it to do over. I wouldn't change anything at all. I'm very happy to have had the opportunity. All its good points and all its not so good. But it's an indication of what I felt at that time, that I had already had a space flight and a lot of publicity around that.
We've got time for one last question, so make it a good one. We will go to... at the very back there. Yeah. The gentleman in the scarf.
How do you know that is the best question?
Don't, I'm hoping.
I don't know if this is a good question.
Is he a student?
Now, I finished my degree a long time back.
That's okay. That's
right. Have you ever met with Yuri Gagarin or any of his associates? And if so, what was your opinion of the Russians at that time?
I didn't get that.
Have you ever met with
Yuri Gagarin?
Yuri Gagarin, and what was your opinion of Russians at that time?
Yeah. No, we didn't have the opportunity. The relations were not that smooth. They eased a good bit, and as I say, we did do that joint docking with them in 1975. Last Apollo was December 72. The Russian cosmonauts were younger than we were. Their systems were controlled more from the ground. Their rendezvous and their docking was more controlled from the ground than ours. We let the crew do. We had, I think, probably better computer programs to carry out things that we did. I think the system, the ground controllers that we had confidence in us to do the right things. And we did most of the time. I don't think that they had the same confidence in the cosmonauts. For a good while, I have observed that the condition, the medical condition of the cosmonauts is paid more close attention, especially the mental health, the attitudes, the irritations. And there are irritations after a good while in space. And we've experienced those, and so have the Russians. It strikes me as somewhat indicative, but a surprise too. The medical spaceflight medicine group is called the Institute of Biomedical Problems, not solutions. I'm getting that because I've been concerned about some of the tests that are being done on the the two twins that are going to fly at the end of this month. And there are some other things that I've learned about that we could be doing, but there's a lot of red tape, there's progression, getting in line to get things submitted. Anyway, a number of us feel that with identical twins, and one of them is going to fly for a year in space, and the other is retired, that maybe there are some more recent things that could be done easily to monitor the condition. But we're all making progress. Things get better and better as we learn. This happens to be a situation that probably won't ever occur again. Have a good sense of humor. You know what humor is? Gee, I got a big audience, I can tell. Well, it's to have a normal situation and all of a sudden you throw in an absurdity and treat it as if it never was unusual. I had one of those during flight, during the moon trip. And I thought about it a good bit. And I knew that we were going to be all ready to lift off. Maybe you heard this on the video. Maybe. I was outside. But I knew that that Mission Control was going to say just before, that said, well, we called ourselves Tranquility Base. And they were going to say, Tranquility Base, you're cleared for liftoff. So what did I say? Roger, Houston, we're number one on the runway. There wasn't a runway and there wasn't anybody else up there.
Unfortunately, that's all we have time for, but we have a small gift for you, Buzz, for thanking you for joining us this evening. So, just got a picture of the chamber, and I was hoping that you could possibly take a photo with everyone in the background if we head this way. Oh. So make sure you all smile.
Now what?
We're going to head, just if we could head to this side.
Oh.
Oh, no, we just turn around. So everyone try and get in and make sure you smile.
Okay.
You want to head this way?
You don't feel cramped now, do you? We don't want to glare on this. We're covering up all the people back there.
Wow.
So up next we have an interview where basically Buzz's phone goes off a bunch of times at the beginning. Then he kicks his legs like a toddler and rambles a bunch. Him and Bolden argue, and what can I say? Buzz driving is always fun.
Social media for a long time, really since about 2008. So those of you who are doing that for us tonight, you're joining a special family. We'd really like to engage with you. We're glad that you're a part of it, and thank you for being here. So I'll stop talking now because nobody cares about me. We'll get on to our first, well, my wife does. Okay, thank you, honey. Okay, but we'll start off tonight. Of course, you know, we're here to see 2001: A Space Odyssey, deep space exploration, and someone who knows a little bit about that is sitting directly to my left, the administrator, Charles Bolden. A long-time Marine aviator, but of course a 4-time shuttle astronaut, 2-time commander, and of course is helping direct us on our next giant leap. And the big question that a lot of people end up asking us is, why Mars?
Why Mars? And I'm going to let Buzz talk about it as much as I, because he and I have talked quite a bit about this topic. We both believe that Mars is what we call the ultimate destination for humanity right now. I have my granddaughter McKaylee over there, and McKaylee always cautions me that Mars is not the ultimate destination. It's intergalactic travel. And I said, Michaela, you know, I can only handle the solar system. So Buzz started this when he and Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon. And as I'm certain he's going to tell you, that step on the surface of the moon was intended to be a precursor for humanity going farther into the solar system. And what he and I would both like to really see is some of the young people who are sitting out here in the audience who are my granddaughter's age and like freshmen in high school and below, be among the first to take Buzz's place and set foot on another body off this planet. And so that's ultimately why that is NASA's next destination. President Obama has made it very easy for us because back in 2010, he set it as an objective for us. The Congress of the United States, believe it or not, agrees with the president. To demonstrate that they agree, they put it into the Authorization Act of 2010. So NASA has two big things we're trying to do. Our next small step is to try to capture an asteroid by 2025 and then put humans with that in lunar orbit. And we'll use lunar orbit and the infrastructure there as a stepping stone to get onto Mars in the 2030s. And that's all I want to say.
Can we talk about that?
We can. You
Sure.
can talk about anything you want to talk about. Yes, you can talk about anything you want to talk about.
One point though, when often we're asked, you know, what's your favorite planet? And people will say Mars or Jupiter or
Mine is Earth.
Yeah, I was about to say because we'd like to come back. We, like to make it a round trip, but Buzz talking about Mars, that's not necessarily the case in terms of pioneering the red planet. You're not necessarily, doesn't have to be a two-way trip, does it?
I want you to get used to these glasses because my son wears glasses and I put these on and I'm like, Jesus, I look just like him. But I got to get a new pair of glasses like hers.
Just a favor, stand up for a second. Just let everyone kind of...
So that everybody knows what we're talking about.
I actually make these for the kids to get them in the
But you've really talked about the ultimate pioneering of Mars, which is go and stay.
It's could be called a settlement. Could be called a colony. But I'll bet you that you could still call it a settlement or a colony by going there, coming back, going again, coming back, and then you say, that's not a bad place. I think we ought to settle it, right? So that's what settlement or colony means to me, that you can change your mind. I took the liberty of beginning to use one of Charlie's words a bit more of pioneering, but I'm going to add it to my word of permanence, pioneering permanence. Now, you can ask a big company, Boeing, Lockheed, what's their plan to get to Mars? And I suspect I know what it is, because I know what some of the latest NASA design reference missions are, because I have read them. And it's not the way I see it. I remember going over to Cambridge in England to talk to Stephen Hawking.
Name dropper.
Well, see, I had first met him when he was visiting Pasadena. And that was shortly after he had issued a statement that said the Earth has about
200 years, as he sees it, for us to establish a off-Earth civilization. Now, I don't know whether he's talking about pestilence, nuclear war, asteroid impact, or cockroaches taken out. But I went up to it and I said, you know, we can do better than 200 years. I think we can maybe 30 years. I recently have come up with a question, and I would really like for somebody to tabulate an answer that makes sense. How many people do you think would be in a lander landing on Mars? Let's say on the first trip somebody lands.
Put it out there.
No, I'm asking you.
Oh, you're asking me? Oh. Well, since I have to live within the confines of budgets and other things that these folk know about, our plan right now is to have a lander that has anywhere from a crew of 2 to 7. And, and the question I would ask you to answer for some of the young kids is, because eventually they're going to want to ask us about robots. Because they're going to want to say, and I will ask the question for the young lady back here, why should we go at all when we can send robots? And I have an answer, and I know you have an answer, but I think they'd be interested in hearing from you why you think it is that why do we need robots? But why are robots not the ultimate answer for settlement on Mars?
Who is we?
We meaning us, human beings. Why do we need to send humans? This is a question I get hit with all the time.
Well,
as a NASA administrator, why do you want to put astronauts at risk?
Now we're talking about we, the United States.
No, I don't. I talk about we as humanity. We talk about this all the time. I know I work for you all. I seriously do. I'm a civil servant. I work for you. But I think it's really important for most of you to understand that at NASA we work internationally, and we pursue the kind of stuff that Buzz really does believe in, which is if we're going to go off this planet and settle other places, and the place that we both agree is Mars, it is going to have to be with other nations. I use the International Space Station as a great example today because it's a mini United Nations, and I think the space station is a model for the way that we could travel to Mars.
Well, if you really mean what you're saying, and I say we means the United States, and you say it means the world, it must mean
China.
That other nations want to go too.
You're gonna.
Okay, so if we don't go, the Chinese are going to go, right?
Nobody's going to go if we don't go. The point that everybody should understand: we're having a friendly family argument here, and because I really want all of these folks to understand that we really are the leaders of the world right now in terms of exploration and science and technology development, and we are. Who else has landed something off this planet? Who else has? Buzz is the only person in this forum who has ever lived off this planet. There is one first person, of the two surviving today, and that's him. And we are here this weekend to celebrate the 45th anniversary of his landing on the moon. And
that script. We do have more important things, but obviously I've given this an awful lot of thought, and you can sit and say, okay, no, we go and we come back, or we don't go. Let's say we go.
when we take, you know why 7 is a good number? That's all we can get in my spacecraft. I wish you could get 7 people, but it's an odd number. See, when you have a difficult decision, if you have 6 people, it would be 3 against 3, and you won't make a decision. So you got to have an odd number.
That's interesting.
That's what the psychologist told us. Now, I'm
like
real
that.
serious, because we can talk about going somewhere and what are the benefits going to be, and we can talk about why we, America, should go back to the moon, and why maybe we shouldn't go back to the moon. But let's get to Mars. Now, let's say we got a good sized spacecraft. We've got 7 people in there. So, and it's international. But it's going to be led by the United States. Now, we're going to land 7 people on Mars, and they're going to stay until Earth catches up with Mars again, and it's on the order of a year and a half, and we're going to bring them back. Right?
No, not necessarily.
Well, he's been listening to me.
I have. We're supposed to be.
But not everyone feels like that. Now I want to ask you to think about the billions of dollars, not just the United States, but countries around the world have spent to put those 7 people on Mars. Okay? We're going to bring them back. I want you to think about what they're going to do when we bring them back to continue to earn the billions of dollars that have been spent on getting them there. And they're not going to get home for nothing. I mean, that is expensive too. Much more than you'd like to know. But what are we going to do? Now, you have to realize that on the way back, the second crew has gone. And we're about halfway there when the first crew is about halfway back. So don't get in your mind that that crew coming back is going to help to train the next crew. Because we got professional trainers that trained that first group of 7 where they went there. And these professional trainers are going to be watching damn near everything those 7 guys do while they're there. Because we want to know what is the thing that humans can do over there. Okay, so these are professional trainers. They're going to be the ones who train the second crew, not the guys that come back. You know, what else can we do with those 7 people?
Actually, I'm taking a little sidebar here because you brought up an interesting point in who's training them. When you were going to the moon, how much were you paying attention to what was happening during Apollo 10 before Apollo 11 went? Because it was a dry run.
We stole their Capcom. No, I'm not kidding. Charlie Duke was really impressive on Apollo 10. We didn't believe those other guys.
Kind of bring it back to the film.
Yeah.
2001. Did you allow yourself at the time to get into the film? Did you notice any, what was the film like compared to the real
First
thing?
time I saw
when you were there?
2001?
Yes.
It was before we went to the moon. I believe.
What was the real thing in comparison?
You're not going to like this.
No, that's okay.
I fell asleep.
I have to ask this question. Did you fall asleep on the way to the moon? Looking at the
Yes,
movie?
we did that too.
So you fell asleep in the movie. Okay, I
want to pull Emil into this because, and we were talking earlier, when Stanley Kubrick was beginning production of the film, because these iconic scenes with these classical pieces, Strauss and what have you, I can't hear some of those things today and not think of that movie. But at the time, he was actually thinking of scoring, having an original score for it.
Exactly. He commissioned the composer who wrote the film music to Cleopatra and to Spartacus, Alex North, to write a whole soundtrack. And Jim wanted a new soundtrack for 2001: A Space Odyssey. And while this composer wrote the entire score, he decided right before the premiere to use his score that he put together, his classical score. So the opening.
We asked Roger Waters to do it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, but you can find there somebody has Jerry Goldsmith has recorded Alex North's score, so you can actually listen to it and see what you think. But it's amazing when you hear that opening the 2001 fanfare, as we know it, by Richard Strauss. It was a totally obscure piece of classical music. This film made it one of the most famous pieces and most identifiable pieces of orchestral music in orchestral music history. Sadly, Alex North only found out that Kubrick did not use his score when he went to the premiere. So he felt very bad and very, he said it was one of the most humiliating experiences of his life. But I think Kubrick was a little bit of an unusual fellow. But what he produced, this transcends science fiction, this marriage of imagery, silence, and abstract modern music. He also used the abstract music for the light tunnel, is by a Hungarian composer named Ligeti. And Mr. Ligeti found out that his music is used in 2001 also after the premiere because he didn't ask permission. But he also made his music very famous because he was an obscure modern composer. And just the genius of what Kubrick did in this marriage. And I think it was really, in the dressing room, I was chatting with Buzz, I thought it was just fascinating that...
Is he still alive, the guy who wrote that?
No, he died a couple of years ago. But actually it made him very wealthy and very famous. But I thought it was cool that in the year 2001 you met Arthur C. Clarke.
I was on a cruise ship. I spent the whole day in 2001 with Arthur. I was going to do that again in 2004. There was a tsunami.
So this is 2 years ago. Charlie was here right 10 days before the landing of Curiosity on Mars, and we had a short film made by Duncan Cobb that we showed before the planets that we had in association with NASA. And I remember that so clearly, and the technology of that looked absolutely crazy. It's like, there's no way this could work. And we had the film in a shortened version, of course, and animated with music by Bizet, introduced by Charlie Bolden, and then I was so fortunate to be at the Jet Propulsion Lab on the evening that it landed successfully. And I think that speaks loudly, so loudly, for the future of what Americans can do with our advanced technology for exploration for mankind. And it's such a thrill that you all are here to see this monumental film. And we've had many associations with NASA over the years. The National Symphony Orchestra, I think, has the closest association with NASA of any orchestra in the country. Yeah, the socks are amazing. If any of you think of trying to fall asleep during 2001, just remember Buzz's socks. It's such an honor to have this man with us on this celebration and for us to be a part of it. Thank you, Charlie.
I'm happy to know you appreciate songwriting.
Okay, Moon Man, I'm sure you just whisked yourself right off to the moon. Just no problems. And your Apollo 11 with its 64 kbs of memory and 0.043 MHz's of processing power. My 4-year-old desktop PC has 125,000 times the memory and 65,000 times the processing. So I'm just going to strap this thing up to my shoulders and just go out there through the 3,000 degree heat. I'm sure everything will be just fine. You can see in this image, just kind of showing you how the clues are right in front of you. Huge shadow. Giant shadow. Not more than a few hours later, I'm sure this picture, where's the shadow? That little thing? Doubt it. We did not land on moon. You see this image here? We've got clear studio lights. Of course, Globe Boys will just say they took the picture off a TV screen like people always do. Because that makes a lot of sense. And lastly, we leave you with Buzz with his shirt telling you everything you need to know. I mean, the lies couldn't be any clearer, nor can the liars be any clearer. Should be obvious. So, that's about it. Reminding you to subscribe if you haven't yet done so. Just click up here at the top. Or if you want to watch the most recent Globebusters ISS live viewing party, click here on the left. If you want to support us, we'd appreciate it at patreon.com by clicking the middle. Or if you haven't seen the new Apple iPad Pro commercial, click on the right and check that out and see how they know the Earth is flat. Do you? Well, that's it for today. So just a quick reminder to never trust me, don't trust men. Do your research. Let your mind tell you where truth is. But this has been Jaronism, reminding you to take care of each other and don't tell lies to one another. And lastly, open up your minds because there's truth inside. Until next time. Peace.